Narayana, 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 Narayana. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Truly, what we are discussing is a very phenomenal level of teaching which is to be practiced by a true seeker, an intense seeker, such as a bodhisattva. Sattva means a being, a person, you might say. Bodhisattva is the one who is committed to this knowledge. Sattva is also mind. Bodhisattva is having a mind which is bodhichitta as they call it. So such a person is a bodhisattva. There may be more meanings which are interpreted, but basically one who has committed himself to knowing this one self of all and removing the notion of an individual self. Not only from me, but also from others. You cannot say, I am a selfless person, but everybody has a self. Nonsense. Means he has not understood anything. Another thing is, do not say that there is a self truly in any dharma. Phenomena. Dharma means a phenomena. Including morality. Is there really an essential soul of a moral character? We emphasize so much about moral character. Is there really an essential nature which is permanent in a moral character? What is moral in India is not an essential moral in the US. What is an essential moral character in the US may not be in the UK, differing by place. Similarly, the moral character of 100 years ago may not be a moral character or a trait seen today as essential. A moral character of me, a male, is different from the moral character of a female, or maybe a transgender. So even the moral character has no essential quality, no self. So any phenomena you may take, there is no essential self. It is sunya. It is all dependent on time, place and objects. One causing the other. Series. So there is really no essential self in either in the material phenomena or the empirical subjective phenomena. There is no essential nature of their own, which is permanent and transmigrating. In that sense, when I die, when this body is burnt, this same body does not come anywhere else. There would not be another Amuk Swami, Parakashtananda, who will be born after this body is burnt. To that sense, what I call as myself, the body self, which includes the body as well. So today when I say I do not discount this body. But the body will be burnt, will decay, get destroyed. So there is no way there will be a rebirth for the so-called I, which is only existing now associated with this body and the mind. Some people say that the mind, since it does not die, it will be born into another body, so I live. So am I willing to agree now that this body is not me? Only then I can talk like that. Somebody will happily say, yes, I am not the body. But all the behavior in this world is only associated with the body. I discriminate people by body. Once upon a time, I considered this body and I said, I am young. Now I say, I am old. It's all associating and identifying myself with this body. If you are able to truly transcend the body, the notion of a body has died. Then you can say possibly that I am the mind. So I have a rebirth. But that is not the case now. All our experiences are limited by this knowledge we are gaining, which includes sight, meaning the shape and color. If you truly want to say, I am the self, you must transcend this body identification, the physical gross body identification of shape and color and its own properties. So, overcoming the skandha or the heaps or knowledges coming out of these 5 sensory organs of knowledge should be disidentified from your notion of the self. That's what is emphasized here in this paragraph. And yet, although immeasurable, this paragraph. Furthermore, Subhuti, in the practice of generosity, a bodhisattva should be unsupported. He or she should practice generosity without regard to sight, sound, touch, flavor, smell, or any thought that arises in it. Means you don't identify with any of the knowledge associated with these, because you are identifying as if there is an entity associated with it. I, such and such, is doing this charity. I, the one-eyed man, is doing the charity. Means you have identified yourself with it. So without taking support of any of these 5 types of knowledge, 5 heaps of knowledge, you do your charity. Means you work in the world to help anybody who wants to know about this idea that truly there is no self. Bodhisattva is only doing that, nothing more. Means to help people discard this notion of an identified person is all the Bodhisattva's job. Not that he is going to go and dig in everybody's house when they want a well. He may do it, but that is not a Bodhisattva's job. Only awakening is a Bodhisattva's job. Not going to do dishes in their house. Only to tell them what is the cause of sorrow. Their misidentification, wrong views is the cause of sorrow. So you give them this idea, you help them progress in that. But you cannot do their job. Wash dishes for them, wash clothes for them, you cannot do. You can't do farming for them and feed them. Then you will be stuck with one. But if it is a problem of sorrow because of misidentification, there you want to help them if they want to. No. Subhuti, thus, smell or any thought that arises in it. Even a thought. That's what I wanted to say here. I went back to say, or any thought that arises in it. So even the thought identification should not be there. Thinking that I am a mental person, not a physical body person. Like I said, you transmigrate because I am the mind. So your identification with the mind also, the mind person, the person in the mind should not be there. Your identification should not be there. Because the person in the mind is a time-bound person. He comes now, he goes away. The person who comes in the waking hours is different from the person who comes up in the dreaming hours. And is different from person or no person in the sleeping time. These 3 persons are different. So, when you have to identify, even though it is primarily applicable in our waking hours, do not identify yourself with that waking person, the one holding the story of the 5 heaps as his position. Because if these 5 heaps are different, means 5 groups of knowledge are different and they are disconnected, how will I know that this is the place I visited and this pain I got or this profit I got? How do I link them? How do you connect them? So there is a phantom of a mind-based person who connects these two, links them, saying when it rains, after 2 days, the sprouts will come from the ground. Who can connect it? A rain and the sprouts coming, two things that you see. But what if I am far away and I see the thunder and say, oh, there is going to be a rain, though I have not seen it. So to link the knowledge coming from 5 different sources, there is one integration point, the person, the mind-based person. Even that you should not be. That's what he said here. Subhuti, thus should a bodhisattva practice generosity without being supported by any notion of a sign. Any notion of a sign. All these are signs. Because every time a person is coming, a sign is a person, right? The owner of that. So you should not identify with any sign. Why? When a bodhisattva practices generosity without being supported by any notion of a sign, his or her merit will be beyond conception. What is the merit? The merit is having a strengthening of samskara or sankara, as I call it in the Pali, impression of being a no person. More towards a universal person, more towards the dharmakaya, more towards oneself of all, not with an identified. That is the infinite merit. Because with that merit, one day this notion of a limited parichinna individual will go away. So that is the merit. Merit does not mean the one used saying that if you do some charity, you go to heaven. Not that kind of a merit where there is, they call abhyudaya in Sanskrit. Means the progress, as they say, worldly prosperity. Not that. Here the prosperity is freedom from false notion. That samskara, that impression is being strengthened. That merit is infinite. It is beyond conception. Because you have discarded concepts, it's beyond conception. Subhuti, after that, Subhuti, what do you think? Can you measure the space extending eastward? He's continuing with the second point. He's asking, can you measure the space extending eastward? No, world honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, can you measure the space extending toward the south or west or north or above or below? No, world honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, so it is with the merit of a bodhisattva who practices generosity without cherishing any notion of a sign. It is beyond measure like space. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should persevere one-pointedly in this instruction. So just to make Subhuti and us understand what is the size and scope of this merit, he is asking him, can you measure the distance in eastward? How do you measure? Where does east end? Similarly, where does west end? There is no way. So, because we know this, that this is immeasurable, so Buddha is asking, so much immeasurable is the merit of that person who can disconnect this conception and go beyond conception. So the charity is a way of working in this world, way of living in this world. As an example, where there is a stark contrast of I and the other. In that solid situation of giving to giving, where the giver and the given are known, you want to bring up a concept of no selves or individuals. Such practice, the measure of such an act, such a living beyond conception, to measure its greatness and strength and so on, Buddha is giving an example which we can relate to, saying in this direction or this direction or this direction, it is immeasurable. So much immeasurable is the merit of such a person who discards conception, conceptualizing, not living in the mind, not living as an identified individual who goes and thinks himself to be the one talking here, the one narrating the story here, and suffering the sufferings of the thought. Not that person. You discard and live. Such is an example given for Subhuti and us to grasp what is meant by living beyond concept. Because we cannot measure eastward direction, etc. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should perceive one-pointedly in this instruction. So practice non-conceptual living. Not to identify yourself with any of the 5 types of knowledges that you gain, or even the integrating personality, a phantom I in the mind. Even in the most essential dualistic transaction, such as giving. Continuing, Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to recognize the Tathagata by means of bodily marks? No, world-honored one. And why? When the Tathagata speaks of the bodily mark, he speaks of the no possession of no marks. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is an illusory existence. When the illusory nature of form is perceived, the Tathagata is recognized. Subhuti said to Buddha, world-honored one, in times to come, will there be beings who, when they hear these teachings, have real faith and confidence in them? We'll come to this later. Let's go back to the previous sentences. Because the Tathagata, in the popular conception, for example, the images of Buddha that we see, have certain shapes, certain features. We see very long ears, a long face, or maybe curly hair. And similarly, they say there is a Padma or something under the sole of the feet, etc. Maybe there are more marks on the body. Can you identify a Tathagata by that? That's what he asked him. In fact, Buddhism says there will be 32 such marks of identification when such a holy man is born in his final birth of knowledge. If somebody were to truly trust this and follow this and take it as if there is a person with those 32 qualities, then the Bodhisattva has defeated his goal. If Bodhisattva has defeated his goal, Buddha also has defeated his goal. Because a Buddha cannot be identified with those physical characteristics, because it has already been said, even the physical characteristics are an illusion. How can you associate truth to illusion? Bhagavan Sri Krishna also said the same thing many places. People who do not know tell me I am born. How could I be born who have been ever? Birth comes when it was not there earlier and it comes now. But I have always been there. And I continue to be there. And I will be there in future. And people say foolishly that I am born. So Krishna says at one place in the Gita. So if one is identified with the one self of all, where is the birth? Where is rebirth? Where is transmigration? So Buddha is asking, Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to recognize the Tathagata by means of bodily marks? Bodily marks are only for the body. How would you know the essence behind it? Are you able to recognize the essence behind these 232 marks? No, because the essence does not have any features. It is nirguna, unqualified, attributeless, homogeneous. How could there be marks in that one self of all, on whose all the qualities are superimposed because of ignorance? The shape of a wave is superimposed on the ocean waters because we are not able to see water as one ever existing. You cannot recognize water just because you put a shape of a wave unless the drishti is changed to water, redirected to water, and you recognize the form and the nature of water as it is, in which there are no waves. And the waves are also there. As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, I am in the world, world is in me. I am not in the world, world is not in me. Understanding that. So Buddha is asking here, Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to recognize the Tathagata by means of bodily marks? No. World honored one? No. And why? He is only answering. When the Tathagata speaks of the bodily marks, he speaks of the no possession of no marks. Does the water possess waves? Is there a relationship of possession between water and waves? So the marks of the wave are not in the water. When the Tathagata speaks of the bodily marks, he speaks of the no possession of no marks. Are these marks in the essence? No. If the marks means the scratches, the shapes, were inherent in the one self of all, then it would have qualities. How would it be called as nirguna or homogeneous? So these marks do not belong to the Tathagata in his essence, the self in its essence. The marks belong to the body. The body is not Tathagata, body is not the self. There is no self that is truly a owner of these bodily marks, that is not a phantom. Whoever says these bodily marks are mine is a phantom. An appearance. So the marks do not belong to the Tathagata. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is an illusory existence. When I go to sleep, I don't have this body. There is no world. There are no others. So the appearance is very time bound. The world of my waking hours is different from the world of my dreams. which totally disappears in the deep sleep. So world as a totality is an appearance in my awareness. Being aware is essential. Being conscious is essential. Let me put that way to differentiate the two words consciousness and then awareness. If I were to call consciousness as identified, awareness becomes unidentified. Though essentially they are the same. Only two words to indicate their state. Because I say I am conscious of smell, I am conscious of sound, I am conscious of space, a shape, I am conscious of a taste, I am conscious of touch. So the word conscious is my awareness associated with the sensory perception, sensory knowledge. If these two are to be disconnected, it's not conscious anymore. We say when I go to sleep, in deep sleep, I'm not conscious. So because the terminology of consciousness is associated very tightly with this experience, a sensory experience, or even the mind-based experience. Because I saw a tiger yesterday, now it comes to my mind. And that I recognize and get scared. Means this time it's simply a smriti or a memory that has been recognized and creates the same emotions in the body-mind. The smriti comes from its store, from its previous impressions. So this is how the worldly experience is happening. An intensely felt sensory experience is stored somewhere and comes on its own without my asking for. It comes. And then it evokes the same emotions of trauma or maybe even happiness. And I think that I have got this experience. The experiencer is created by recreation of these emotional states. The emotional states create a phantom owner of that, a mental owner of that. And we think that is solid, tangible, which is not. So the marks do not identify the essence, which is basically qualityless, unqualified. If somebody says these qualities are in that, which means that he has identified a limited individual. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is an illusory existence. When the illusory nature of form is perceived, the Tathagata is recognized. So what he is saying, when you recognize the illusory nature of the form, when you perceive the illusory nature of form, means form itself is negated. Form itself is disidentified. You cannot destroy the form. But you recognize that this wave appears on water, in water. The form of the wave appears in water, on water, and stays for some time and merges back in water. But when it is existing, or when it completely merges, or when the form is appearing, it was always water. Similarly, the appearance of the form has not disconnected itself from the essence. The essence itself appears as the form when we do not recognize the essence. So this is the illusory nature of form. When you recognize this illusory nature of the form, when you perceive that, when it is perceived, the Tathagata is recognized. When the illusory nature or appearance of the wave is recognized, that's when you truly recognize the water. Then the Tathagata is recognized. The self is truly recognized. When the illusory nature of all the forms, not having their own self, nothing but water is recognized, water is recognized. So this is the part of this teaching methodology of recognizing the truth, which is Nama and Rupa, by disidentifying them as a self, denying a separate self for them, whereby the true self is recognized. This is the Prajna Paramita, or the Mrittiketyeva Satyam of teaching of the Vedic Upanishads. I am no great scholar in teaching these, but I am making an attempt. So, some people who are interested may catch it up, and I will be glad to be of assistance further if there is a need. We will continue again. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.